Have you ever wondered what happens when someone builds life-changing wealth overnight and suddenly has to figure out how to protect it, grow it, and make it last for generations? Welcome back to another episode of the Vital Wealth Strategies podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Lonergan, and today's conversation is going to challenge the way you think about digital wealth, family offices, and the future of financial planning. My guest, Jake Claver, is the Managing Director, CEO, and founder of Digital Ascension Group, a cutting-edge family office that helps high-net-worth crypto investors turn volatile digital assets into long-term wealth. Jake went from navigating his own crypto success to helping families around the world secure and multiply their fortunes, and what he's built is absolutely fascinating. In this episode, we dig into how to protect your digital assets from loss, lawsuits, and even life's unpredictability, how to borrow against crypto instead of selling it, which triggers huge tax bills, and how to apply family office framework usually reserved for billionaires to your own business, even if you're still scaling. If you're serious about keeping more of what you earn and building a strategy that actually works in today's economy, you're going to want to listen all the way to the end. And when you're ready to start implementing some of the same strategies Jake and I talk about, like asset protection, entity structure, and advanced tax planning, go to vitalstrategies.com/tax. That's vitalstrategies.com/tax, where you can start building a customized strategy to protect and grow your wealth the smart way. If you find value in today's episode, do me a favor. Leave a quick review wherever you're listening. It helps more entrepreneurs and wealth builders find these conversations and apply them to their own lives. All right, let's dive in. Here's my conversation with Jake Claver of Digital Ascension Group. Welcome to the episode today. I'm excited about our conversation. We've got Jake Claver. He's the Managing Director, CEO, founder of Digital Ascension Group, innovative family office structure that specializes in crypto-focused, high net worth individuals and families. So, Jake, thanks so much for joining us here today.
Absolutely, brother. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah. So it's interesting. We have a number of listeners that have built tremendous wealth in crypto. You know, we look at people that got in early and have held on through all that volatility, and they have done really well. And I think they need help in this arena. So I think about, you know, digital assets and crypto markets. They're volatile, they're confusing, they're full of risks.
Yes.
You know, regulations are unclear, and it can be easy to make costly mistakes. So I also think about entrepreneurs feeling uncertain about, you know, how to safely integrate crypto into their wealth strategy without jeopardizing, you know, their family's financial future. And then wealth should be secure, right? Should be future oriented, should be adaptable to, you know, what I want to do with my life, not, you know, feel sort of held hostage by my wealth and not be able to, you know, recognize the value. And so also think about the security piece there too, not losing my wealth to hacks, mismanagement, or just lack of planning in general. So I'm excited to get into all of those things here today. Can you give us a little bit of your background, how you got started with Digital Ascension Group and created this whole structure that you developed?
Yeah. So, you know, it's kind of surreal. I made a bunch of money in crypto in 20 and 21. I had set aside some money for my wife and I to buy another home, which we still haven't done.
Right.
But, you know, when the market fell in 2020, I actually didn't get into crypto. I got into traditional stocks. I'd gone to school for finance, but I'd really stayed out of the market. I felt like everything was overvalued. All the stuff that I learned in school, Sharpe ratio, PE ratios, Buffett indicator, like I was like, okay, well, there's going to be another pullback, and I'm going to take advantage. And so, you know, I rolled my 401k that I had from a previous employer to a self-directed IRA, bought a bunch of stocks. Well, it's not a bunch of stocks, but Facebook, Amazon, Google, Tesla. I thought, okay, if the world shut down, like these are probably going to be okay. And they did. They rebounded really quickly, and they actually got really quickly. And so I didn't get the bottom. It was close, but I was looking to de-risk. I was like, all right, well, I'm back to double my money very quickly. How do I, you know, diversify this and like make sure I'm hedging against, you know, dead cat bounce? Or I didn't know it was just going to keep going up and to the right with all the money printing. So you think you're de-risking and you get into crypto. I watched a debate between Peter Schiff, who's a gold bug, and a Bitcoin guy. And I really figured out what Bitcoin was. It's technology. It's a protocol. It allows value to move. It's an immutable ledger. And I'm like, okay, now I see why everybody was crazy about this in 2017. My brother had turned like $5,000 and almost $200,000. And I'm like, pull it out. And he didn't. And it went to zero, you know, like
Mm.
I felt vindicated. I thought, it is a Ponzi scheme. And so I just kind of dismissed it after that. And so circling back around, I really started to do research after I watched that interview. And I took 13 different positions, divested completely from the stock market, and rolled it into crypto mid 2020. And timing worked out. I don't think I'm that smarter,
Mhm.
that much smarter than anybody else. But I just happened to get in at the right time, and everything took off. I listened to people on YouTube that had done well in previous cycles, and I just was like, okay, they seem to think these are good, and I did my research, and I'm like, they seem legit. And really, all of it's still speculation. There's nothing that's utility driven in this entire
Yeah.
asset class yet.
Yeah.
Yet it's
Yeah.
coming. So
Hmm.
made a bunch of money, and I didn't come for money. My dad was well to do, he was a consultant, but I think when he passed away, he might have had $1 million. And
Hmm.
and most of that went to my stepmom, it wasn't me. Um, which, God
Hmm.
rest her, she deserved it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just want to make sure I didn't mess it up. So I kind of leaned on what I went to school for, and I was like, all right, I need CPAs, I need accountants, I need tax attorneys, I need estate planners to make sure that my stuff's structured the right way, I'm mitigating risk. And I couldn't really find anybody that would do the wealth management the way that I wanted it done. So we started with custody. We ended up working with standard custody, which was acquired by Ripple
Hmm.
at the end of 23, I believe. There was some falling out with the company that previously owned it, and they ended up acquiring it. It's a trust bank there in New York that holds digital assets. And over the last 3 years, we just, I got on social media in 22 and was talking about what I was doing. Some people were nice enough to make some introductions to some family offices, and
Hmm.
they needed my services, so started working with them. And then over the last 3 years, we've really built out Digital Ascension Group into the MFO that it is today. So we
Yeah.
have one of two SEC registered RAs that deals with crypto.
Hmm.
Most of our clients, we actually have 100 times more clients than any other wealth manager in the world for digital assets.
Yeah.
Close to $1 billion in AUM today,
Hmm.
all crypto. We just added traditional assets, so I'd expect that some of our clients will bring those over just so they have a holistic view of their
Hmm.
total portfolio. Most of them are very heavily vested in crypto versus other asset classes because they believe in the thesis of some of the appreciation that's going to happen with the adoption of these
Yeah.
networks. And yeah, it's just been a roller coaster ride over the last 3 years, scaling rapidly.
Yeah.
Um, for your audience, being entrepreneurs, you take a risk and a swing at something, and
Hmm.
when you find a niche that works, you dig in and
Right.
barrel through it. So we're kind of at the point now where we're building out systems and scaling very rapidly. We have multiple C-suite executives across the subsidiaries that we
Hmm.
have, building out a lot of the SOPs and infrastructure to be able to get past that $30 million a year mark.
Yep. Yeah. This is so good. Thank you. So I got a few things. So you mentioned an acronym MFO, and that's I assume that's multifamily
You got it.
office, right? Like
Yep.
you're providing these family office structures for people. Can you outline exactly what that is?
Sure.
I think I understand that, but I think it'd be good to know for our listeners to just hear what that is.
So if you've seen, there's about 10,000 family offices globally and scaling. Before COVID in 2020, there was really only about 2,000. So we're seeing an explosion of people starting to set these up. There's really no standardized way that people operate a family office. So you kind of have three different models. You got a single family office. Most of the time, you need at least $100 million. Most of the time, that's a founder that's exited or somebody else that's had a large liquidity event that's setting that up. You have multifamily offices. Multifamily offices are where multiple family offices will pool resources to be able to get cost benefit
Hmm.
and reduced some of the drag. Most of the time, to set up a family office and run it correctly, you're looking at 1 to 2% of your AUM each year
Hmm.
in order to be able to operate it at scale and mitigate the risk. But when you're dealing with that amount of money, if you make a 5% mistake, you could have paid 2 years worth of people's salaries
Right.
um,
Right.
to make sure that you didn't make that mistake. So
Hmm.
that's why a lot of people set these up at scale when they get to those numbers. And then kind of the last model that's come into vogue over the last probably 2 years is a virtual family office. And I would say, we're kind of on the cutting edge between a virtual family office and a multifamily office.
Hmm.
You think of the services, private client services that many large investment banks provide, but their incentives don't always align with their clients, right? And
Hmm.
sometimes they're charging significant fees. So you think through things you like wealth management. the estate planning, insurance. You look at concierge service or lifestyle management, bill pay, accounting, CPAs, generational planning. You also have family governance is a big piece of family offices. So,
Yeah.
if you're planning for multiple generations, you want to have annual meetups where you're discussing things, you're changing the board out. You might be changing out people or members of your financial committee. You want to set up those documents at the beginning. So you're going to set up, a mission statement or North Star for the family,
Yeah.
principles, core values that you're going to abide by, and operate under, ethics documents for, what people are supposed to be doing in the family and how they're able to participate in the family wealth. And then governance, who
Yeah.
gets access to what, when, for what reasons. So we help people, that come into wealth and digital assets, establish all of that. We provide, a full scope of resources. Many people that, have come into wealth through an exit in a company tend to have some of those people already around them, whereas the majority of the people we work with are very similar to lottery winners. They made a great investment and it skyrocketed, and they didn't get the 10 to 20 years that it takes to build a corporation and exit to surround themselves with the right professionals to make good decisions.
Yeah.
And so that's, kind of the demographic that we work with.
Mm-hmm. This is so good. Jake, I would like you to walk us through digital asset custody, because I think we've heard too many stories of issues with custody. We think about, everything from, I'm going to rewind 30, 40 years to when I would own my stock certificates. Right. And if I had those stock certificates in a filing cabinet in my office and my office burned down, the stock was gone. Not that different than if I have my crypto on a hard drive and I throw it away or it burns up in a fire, it's gone. And so if you could talk to us a little bit about custody and why that's important, because, you obviously entered that space for a reason. And I think that is worth a discussion.
Yeah, for sure. So my wife thinks I'm crazy. And many other people that are in this, digital assets, their spouse doesn't quite understand it, and they really don't have any interest in learning all of the mechanics behind how to execute, a trade or move it from one wallet to another. It's cumbersome, right? And it does take some time to be able to understand all that. So what we provide people is effectively a Schwab account for their crypto. They bring us their digital assets that they purchased on an exchange, oftentimes in their personal name. We restructure that and make sure it's under an entity or a trust for them, and we set that account up at Anchorage, which is our institutional partner for custody.
Yeah.
You may have heard just recently that BlackRock has migrated their holdings for their ETFs from Coinbase to Anchorage because of the security and the insurance and all of the assurances that they bring. So they're the only federally chartered bank that currently provides these services for enterprises. And so again, that's kind of the reason we don't do any individual accounts. It's only if you're holding your assets in an LLC or a C corp, or we will do IRAs. But anyway, back to the custody component. So to your point, there's a significant risk of loss for these digital assets. Even if you have it on like a metal template and you've got the keys etched in there, the fires in California were effectively taking a blowtorch to those. There's many people that lost millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars in crypto in those fires, right? And nobody wants that. It's a horrible thing to discuss or think about, but that's the reality of the world, right? There are going to be situations that could transpire that could really put you at a disadvantage if you're holding these bearer assets yourself. And so what we try to do is bridge that gap. We provide you an institutional grade custody account in your name. It's an FBO account, segregated, bankruptcy remote, insured, up to $100 million. And you own the asset still, but you get all the assurances that you would get from working with a custodian. And so again, you get your spouse on there. She doesn't have to know, or he doesn't have to know anything about this. They have access to the account. You get your kiddos on there, or whoever else is your beneficiaries, to make sure that they end up with the assets if, God forbid, something happened to you. And you don't have to think about it. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to think somebody's going to break into your house and steal your cold wallet. I know people that carry millions of dollars around with them in their cold wallet on their person at all times. And I'm like, hey, cool. If you want to be sovereign and free and travel and do what you want to do, I get it, man. But for me, I would rather just know that it's taken care of, like you mentioned with the stock certificates. I don't have to worry about it, my house burning down, or have redundancies, or deal with all of the other constraints that you have to have if you're owning it personally.
Yeah. And I think that is so important. And I'm curious if there's any. I don't see it, but I'm curious your point of view. You highlighted a little bit of it there. The sovereignty piece of it. Like, no, I control it. Nobody can take control of this thing. Because we think about some of the things that happened in Canada. I'll say
Oh,
during COVID, where they were like, shutting down bank accounts for certain people, and it's like, whew, this makes me uncomfortable, right? And so I think about it in this capacity too. It's like, okay, maybe the government gets involved and like, starts seizing my assets, but they can really do that, at any time in any place if they really, really decide to do that. Not that any of us are going to condone that, especially here in the States. Like
right.
we have,
It's a
the
little
Second
bit of a
Amendment. That
different
yeah,
culture here
right, yeah. So
versus there.
especially in the middle of the country, right? So I'm thinking about that piece, and is there any?
Risk.
Because I don't I don't get worried about my Tesla stock custodied at Schwab, right? Like
You didn't even think about
Schwab
it.
is just holding on to it in a safe spot. They don't have any, they can't actually affect any transaction on my behalf. The assets are there, and I have to give them all the instruction before they go ahead and do things. So,
Same.
and this is very similar to that, right? And
Yes.
I don't think people are worried about their stock, so they probably shouldn't be worried about their crypto.
Well,
But I think it's worth discussing.
there's just been that's been the whole promise of this technology, right? You're completely sovereign, you're separate from the banking system, all these things. But again, with radical responsibility comes radical risk. So you're going to be giving up some of that control, right? If you want some of the assurances, you have to give up some of that control. We still do everything on our client's behalf, right? So they call us and say, hey, I want to make a trade. We verify that it's them. If you're removing assets, we have to sign alongside you. And we just give that extra layer of authentication and verification before things happen, which I think a lot of people would appreciate if you ever have lost money in crypto, or sent it to the wrong place or sent it to the wrong destination or been phished. Like any of the things that happen with cold wallets, there's a lot of malicious people out here because this is a very unregulated.
Profitable.
Yeah, well, it's very
Right.
profitable. It's an unregulated space, and so for them, they're willing to fish that and go after people. This again, and that's why we tend to deal with higher net worth individuals, people that have more than half a million currently invested in crypto that want that additional protection around those assets from creditors and from people that could take it.
Yeah, you also mentioned sort of quickly having a digital asset LLC, and I'm going to highlight a few benefits that I see to that, and you can correct anything I say and point us in a different direction. And I also want to highlight that we're not giving legal advice here, so
Well,
that's
I'll just give my whole disclaimer for you, brother. Everything here is for entertainment and educational purposes only. I am not a financial advisor, lawyer, or CPA. Before making any financial, tax, or legal decisions, you should speak with your professionals. And if you need those professionals, you can always work with our firm, and we can provide them for you when it comes to digital assets. So,
thank you. That was beautiful. Well done. Well done. Let's talk about digital assets for a second, or LLCs for a second. Because I think about oftentimes we will put assets into an LLC to, especially like real estate. If somebody gets hurt on that piece of real estate, now the liabilities segregated to that LLC, right? They can't come after my personal assets. Well, we think about Bitcoin, right? Nobody's going to get hurt on my Bitcoin. But what could happen is if I'm out there driving my car and, I get a text message, I look at it and I get into a car accident, right? Now I'm personally liable. And I might have an umbrella policy, but if I'm worth a few $1 million, especially in Bitcoin, and that shows up in discovery, in the lawsuit, all of that could be at risk, right?
For sure.
Because it's not segregated from me. So I generally look at, we think about Wyoming assets and Nevada assets, or Wyoming entities, Nevada entities that have great charging order protection. It's harder to sort of break through that corporate veil in those scenarios. Yeah. So is that the reason why we would put our digital assets into an LLC to protect in that type of scenario, or is there other reasons that also make sense?
You ran it down for me. I really don't have a whole lot to add there. We do use Wyoming because it's most progressive when it comes to the regulatory environment for digital assets. You get that charging order protection. You also get attorney-client privilege there in Wyoming. So any government, public documentation associated with that entity, They're not going to be able to find your name. They're not going to be able to find your address. So there's a lot of benefits, and many people don't think they can establish an entity outside of the state where they reside. You use a registered agent. There are many people that are very affluent that use these structures on a regular basis, and it just costs you a little bit extra money, right, in order to be able to afford that registered agent on an annual basis. It's not overly expensive.
No.
So,
No. Yep.
yeah, to your point, the situation where you were in somebody, you might also have liability with your job. Many people are doctors. There's something that they do where they could get sued. And to your point, most of the time they're going to have some type of malpractice insurance or an umbrella policy. But if it's bad enough, people can continue to come after you, especially if they find out, look, you're worth a lot more. Let's really get after it here. We'll also do asset protection trusts for people. Those take a little longer to season in, right? So we work with people to set up an LLC first. Gives you that charging order protection and creditor protection in the short term. Oftentimes we will use their living trust in their state that's revocable or irrevocable, however you want to set it up, on the cap table. It's going to get you like 80 or 85% of an asset protection trust. In the meantime, while you season that trust in over 2 years to get that creditor protection. So try to provide a full scope on this stuff and work with the best professionals in the industry. But yeah, an LLC I think is it's a great tool to have in your toolbox if you get somewhere north of $50,000 to $80,000 in investment in really any asset class.
Yeah, this is good. So thank you for that walk down the protection, digital asset LLC conversation. I think that is worthwhile. If today's episode has you thinking about how to protect your wealth, reduce your taxes, and actually keep more of what you earn, this is your next step. At vitalstrategies.com/tax, we'll help you uncover the strategies the wealthy are already using, things like entity structure, family office frameworks, and advanced tax planning, so you can start putting those same tools to work in your own business. Whether you're earning 7 or 8 figures, it's time to make your money as efficient as you are. Visit vitalstrategies.com/tax. That's vitalstrategies.com/tax. And start building your custom strategy today so you can minimize taxes, master cash flow, and focus on building lasting wealth. You brought up the fact that oftentimes, the entrepreneurs had 10, 15, 20 years of runway to sort of build their team around them as their wealth has grown. A lot of the crypto millionaires, it's very much like winning the lottery. They made some smart bets. Those bets paid off, and now it's like, okay, I've got a bunch of money. One thing that I'm curious about is how you see, and if this is even worthwhile. Like I see crypto, like large crypto positions that have appreciated drastically. People want to hang on to those, but it's awfully illiquid, right? Like, man, it's hard to sell off some of this.
Unless you work with us.
Right. So I'm looking for how do we think about this in the context of our, we've got goals in life, we've got this wealth, we want our wealth to support our goals, but sometimes that can be tricky when we've got all this gain built up in there. So can you walk us through, some of the ideas on how we can do that, and pulling those levers? I'm sure you need professionals to help you get there, but
well, we've got them for you, right? So how did Elon buy Twitter?
Let's see. I think he leveraged his current positions with Tesla, SpaceX, Boring Company, maybe.
Yeah, borrowed against that stock, right? So that on paper, he's worth hundreds of billions of dollars. His bank account may say something very different.
Right.
And many people get really wealthy on paper, and it becomes a problem because your cost basis for where you invested or got that stock or whatever it was is very low, and now it's appreciated substantially. And if you did liquidate that position, sell it, you might have some pretty substantial capital gains. And then you got to do the song and dance of, do I set up a foundation? Do I put it in this type of trust? Do I try to evade taxes and end up, getting in a bad situation?
In jail. Right.
Exactly.
Yep.
So, and look, we all want the IRS to go away. I do too, but I got to play by the rules that exist today. Okay. So, and we are all hopeful that, Trump comes true and he removes capital gains tax on some of these cryptos. But until that happens, we have unique solutions that we brought to market to be able to provide people liquidity while maintaining exposure to the long side of the asset. So If you had Bitcoin, if you had XRP, if you got Doge, whatever it is that doesn't have a native DeFi mechanism to be able to earn yield like Solana and ETH, um, then what we do is we can borrow against it. We have people that underwrite the risk on that. Normally, somewhere between 45 and 60% LTV is kind of the high side. We don't normally recommend people do that. Most of the time, we see people do like 20 or 30% because of the volatility in the market. If you did have a capital call, you have to shore that up, especially if the value of the assets drops below the amount that was loaned to you. But you do get first right of refusal with us, which you're not going to get with a smart contract. So we work with tri-party agreements with counterparties that we trust, and they have a human element to make sure people don't lose their stuff immediately, which I think is a huge benefit. But secondary to that, we have a hedge fund that's got a little north of $250 million in it currently of these stagnant assets, right? So you're able to put this up as a capital asset with no tax implications, because that's a hard part. If you're going to contribute to something as a partnership, most of the time it would be taxable. But the way we've structured this, you don't. And then we're able to aggregate those assets, reflect it with a counterparty, so the assets stay inside institutional custody. And then they get a line of margin against that. Most of the time, it's somewhere between 60 and 80%. And then they trade that line of margin in a market neutral strategy. And so we're able to produce cash flow and cash returns or in-kind returns, if you want to double down on the asset, through this hedge fund that we have. And it's the largest, majority of that's XRP, is 5 times the largest magnitude of any other, even DeFi product that's on the market. Because of the assurances and benefits and the way we've structured it to be able to provide people, the warm and fuzzy that they need in order to participate. But there's, as this asset class matures, there's going to be more structured products. We've already got DATs coming onto the scene, which are digital asset treasury companies. If you are an AP, you can, contribute in kind to those. Most people are not a Schwab or a JP Morgan. Kind of limited on that. But I do think that there will be other funds and other structures that people can contribute stuff to. But you're going to have to give over that ownership to somebody else, which is also concerning, right? Because and you're going to have to do that in DeFi. If there's a hack on that smart contract, call it bye-bye. If that counterparty that you put it with goes under, you got another Celsius or Voyager or another situation like that. We've mitigated all those counterparty risks for the way that we've structured it. And I think that's why we've seen a lot of the success that we have.
Yeah, this is so cool. I love what you're doing, because I think, just to highlight a few things there, we, just to keep it very simple, we have this appreciated asset that is, a better term, a tax bomb if we start selling it, right? Because now we sell off some, we use it, and now we're going to have a tax bill, which could require us to sell more assets to pay the tax bill, and it just sort of keeps itself going, which is no fun. But the cool thing, and just to highlight this, when I borrow money, that is not taxable in any way, shape, or form, right? So it's like I can take a loan and recognize those dollars and spend them any way I want and not have to pay a tax bill. Now, we've also seen, in certain situations, if I'm, borrowing dollars from a business context, right? Those could be tax deductible. The interest on that could be tax deductible as well. So it's like, all right, hey, this is got some benefits as well, right? So it's like, all right, this is fun. Not that I don't have to pay the interest. That's also something to be mindful of. It's like there is an interest payment here that we have to be aware of. But that is a fantastic way to get some of our dollars. And the interest it's always cheaper than the tax. I don't know if we look at a scenario where interest gets above 20%, we've got a problem. But I don't see that.
Back to the 80s with Paul Volcker.
Right, exactly. I don't see that coming anytime soon. No. Seems like we're heading the opposite direction. So, very good. So I'm going to outline a little bit of the steps that we've talked through, and see if there's anything else to explore with these. So, first, I think it's really important to just understand. Somebody comes to you, Jake, and says, "Hey, I've got this wealth." I think understanding the opportunities and the risks of the wealth that has been generated, because sometimes we'll see clients holding concentrated positions, and we think if you want to get on the Forbes list, the best way to do that is a concentrated position with leverage, right? Like it's the way to become a billionaire. Now, we also think that concentrated positions with leverage is a good way to go to zero, right?
For sure.
So you can have tremendous growth and tremendous like
Downside.
downside. And so there's a understanding the risks associated with the wealth that we hold, I think is an important part of the conversation. So I don't know if there's anything to talk about there, but I feel like that's step one. Like let's
Yeah.
understand our asset, let's understand the risks, and analyze those in like plain language, and then go there.
Yeah. So I look at wealth growth and wealth preservation kind of like a tree.
Mm-hmm.
So you plant a seed, you focus all your energy and attention on it for 5, 10 years, and you grow this massive trunk, right? And that's the core of your wealth. Sometimes that's a business, sometimes it's investments. There's a lot of different ways to get there. There's a lot of different vehicles, but it tends to be very siloed in the beginning in order to be able to get to a large amount. And then it spreads out, right? Now you have branches where if one part of the tree dies, the whole tree doesn't die, right?
Right.
Um,
Yep.
so that tends to illustrate people pretty, and you'd think about the life of a tree. Most of the time it's going to take you 10, 20 years to get a reasonable sized tree.
Mm-hmm.
Crypto's like bamboo.
Right.
You plant it
Yeah.
and it doesn't do anything for a long time, and then it shoots up, randomly. And you
Yep.
may want to take profits, right? If you believe in the
Mm-hmm.
project over the long term, then you probably don't, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
wealthiest people all around the world, they don't sell assets. They
Mm-hmm.
continue to leverage those assets to diversify their portfolio, and that's what we're working with our clients to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say this, Warren Buffett says diversification is a hedge against ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're ignorant about an asset class, it makes perfect sense to
Yep.
diversify across multiple, pieces of that.
Mm-hmm.
If you look
Yep.
at, Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, he's
Mm-hmm.
never more than 20% of his total portfolio in one asset class, never more than 5% of his total portfolio in one investment. He's a billionaire, right? So
Yep.
makes sense
It
that you'd
works.
be able to
Yep.
diversify that way. But for
Right.
the average person,
Yep.
I think once you get north of probably 10 million is the magic
Mm-hmm.
number. And if that's in your business, like you own stock in your business that's worth more than 10
Mm-hmm.
million, it's a very siloed risk. It could go down very quickly, like you're talking about. If just one
Yep.
thing goes wrong and you get put out of business, a competitor comes in, you lose a key employee, you lose a key client, and that's why
Mm-hmm.
many people de-risk and take the VC
Yep.
money and like take multiple bites
Yep.
of the apple on the way up,
Mm-hmm.
which I think makes a lot of sense. If,
Yep.
if you have spent 5, 10, 20 years building a practice of some kind and you get the VC that comes in and wants to roll you up and you get multiple
Mm-hmm.
bites on the way out, I think it's a great way to go to preserve your wealth and kind of de-risk yourself
Yep.
from, potentially losing it all. So
Mm-hmm.
I think diversification makes sense once you've attained a certain amount of wealth is what I would say.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's fantastic. And so I think about that. And step one is like, hey, let's grow our wealth, maybe, concentrating on, one particular thing that's working. Now that we've grown some wealth, I think step two is let's apply the family office framework, right? Let's utilize the protection tools we were talking about earlier with, Wyoming LLC. Let's utilize the tools around,
Insurance policies, there's
yes. Yep.
there's a ton of different tools in the box, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't ever prescribe one as the ultimate tool for people.
Mm-hmm.
We actually just launched our insurance division. We have many people that, um, you know, uh, want to be able to hedge, the risk of their loss of their life. The other great thing
Mm-hmm.
about an LLC is you can do split dollar life
Mm-hmm.
insurance where it's write off for the corporation insuring you because you're a key employee of the business, and you can structure that in a whole life policy that you can get a line of credit in the business for.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of interesting, like we do a lot of the traditional stuff, right? We're just
Mm-hmm.
applying that to crypto. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd highly recommend. There's a couple books. The Family Office book that was written by Richard C. Wilson. Great
Mm-hmm.
read for anybody that's looking to figure out some of these strategies and learn about what the wealthy do to protect and grow their wealth for the long term. Borrowed from Your Grandchildren is another
Yeah.
really good book. I don't know if you give book recommendations on here or not, but
All the
I
time.
like them.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. Yep. I love this. We'll have links to those in the show notes because I'm always consuming another book. My Audible account is
keeps
just,
growing.
yeah, it does, and I love listening to things while I'm driving or doing whatever. So Yep. That is
I
good.
I call that
Yep.
drinking my books. Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. And my kids make fun of me because I listen to them somewhere between 2 and 3x
Yeah.
speed. And they're like, what is wrong with you?
I
I'm
do
like,
I
well,
do one and a
it
quarter,
keeps me
one and a
focused.
half.
Yep.
I'm like,
Yep.
I can get through it at a good clip that way, but yeah, if I go much faster than that, I miss stuff. So
Yep. Yep. I, not to derail us, but
yeah.
I was reading an Anthony Robbins book, and I was actually reading it a long time ago. And he was talking about speed reading. So I took a speed reading course, and I found that my comprehension went up with speed reading because you had to focus. You wouldn't get done with the page and go, man,
Right.
what did I just read? Right. Because you had to be dialed in. And so I found I can apply the same thing to speed listening
You have to
keeps
be
me,
listening to it,
I
otherwise you
have to
are
be
going to be
listening.
missing it. Yeah.
Otherwise it's just
That's
gone. So,
awesome.
yeah. So then I think about, okay, now we've applied this family office structure to our crypto. And I really like that you highlight, look, we have a number of tools available to us. They're the same tools available to everybody, but we're gonna apply those tools, whether it's insurance, legal structures, tax strategy, to our wealth, and just be as efficient and effective as possible. So, I think about the third step. We've now. I love what you were talking about with we've identified our North Star, right? Like what's going to drive our decision making. We've got a plan for that, and now our wealth is going to support that. We'll say
Mission.
directive for our family and our legacy. So
Mhm.
I think that's wonderful. Anything to add to that plan that we just walked through? I think that is kind of a beautiful structure that you've got going on here.
Yeah, you went through it pretty quickly for people, especially if you're new to this type of information. It's probably a bit overwhelming. I find that,
Hmm.
a lot of my conversations end up like drinking from a fire hose
Yeah.
for most people. But if you can really kind of dig in here and use a lot of these, nuggets that we've kind of gone through, it can be really effective for a business owner. Again,
Hmm.
if you are a business owner, the majority of your wealth and attention are going to be focused on that. I'll give you a story. So I flew private the first time 4 years ago. Paid more than I was comfortable with to get on this flight with people that were way further along than myself
Hmm.
at the time. And I thought that they were going to be like biggity and anyway, some of the coolest people I ever hung out with. And that's when I
Hmm.
realized like to be wealthy, you don't have to be evil or mean or like any of that stuff. I think
Hmm.
that's a paradigm that is just kind of perpetuated for some reason. Most
Yep.
people are really cool and they provide a lot of value for a lot of people, and that's how they generate their wealth. So I get on the flight, I'm talking to this gentleman. He's like, well, I got like $9 million in a checking account. And I'm like, what do you mean you have $9 million in a checking account? He was like, well, that's a year's worth of my income. So it's like my safety net, in case something
Hmm.
goes bad. And I'm
Yeah.
like, so that's when it clicked for me that people that are so focused on their business, they don't have time to go research all of these other opportunities,
Hmm.
right? And
Right.
especially if you are actually executing on your business, that is where all your focus and attention goes.
Hmm. Yep.
So you want to align yourself with professionals that are the best at their game, whatever
Yep.
that is. And it's interesting to me too, we've talked with so many fund managers and different people over the years. They'll have a portion of their wealth with the fund, right, that they're
Hmm.
managing or actively managing. But do you know where they put like 80% of the money that they make? S&P 500.
Yeah. I was gonna say like in some boring stock portfolio,
Somewhere where
right?
they
Yeah.
don't have to think about it, right?
Yep.
So I would say, if you're early on and you can't afford professionals, because I know that's the circumstance for some people,
Hmm.
you
Yep.
probably do just want to be dollar cost averaging into the stock market if you have a longer time horizon.
Hmm.
I think there may be a significant pullback in stocks in the short term here
Hmm.
with the reverse carry trade and everything, kind of culminating for the perfect storm here at the end of 25. But aside from that, it's kind of a set it and forget it and just know that it's going to be successful over the long term. Um, I think that that's a good play as long until you can
Hmm.
afford the right people.
Yeah. Yeah. This is great. And I think you've also created some assets out there for people to I think get plugged into. And I think we see this with, we'll call it multimillionaires and billionaires. They're not trying to figure out how to do it on their own. They understand leveraging,
Well, it's,
you
it's who,
know,
not how. Like,
100%. I love that book, by the way. I'm a Dan Sullivan fan, who, not how. Like find a who in your life to do it. Don't figure out how to do it yourself. I think that's fantastic. And our clients see that. They go, hey, I'm going to need somebody like Jake in my life to run my family office structure, because I don't have the time or energy to create the all of those pieces and try to figure it all out. Not that I couldn't figure it out. I just that's not where my attention goes.
Well,
And you highlighted that
you
earlier.
have this passion or whatever you get fulfillment from, whatever your legacy that you want to leave is, or whatever your
Mhm.
value you're creating in society. If you are one of the best in that field, you just
Mhm.
keep doing what you're good at. Like, I think
Yep.
there's this, again, fallacy that you can be a jack of all trades and be good at everything.
Mm.
Um, the more I have focused, the riches is in the niches. That's what people say,
Right.
right? Like,
Totally.
just continue to double down on what you're good at, and then you'll be able to afford to find the people that are good at whatever else you need. So
Yeah.
yeah, would love to be one of those people, if
Yeah.
that's of interest to people. And I think you were kind of
Sure.
alluding to some of the other resources we have. So
Yeah.
we do have a Substack,
Mhm.
like 550,000 subscribers. We talk about a lot of the stuff we mentioned here, family office, different investments, digital assets, how to structure things, insurance.
Mhm.
And then separate of that, we have a mastermind community that's close to 8,000 people at this point. It's called
Yeah.
Beyond Broke. It's beyondbroke.com.
I love it. I love it. And if people want to just connect with you, they're like, hey, I'm beyond all that. Digitalfamilyoffice.io. You can schedule a time to connect with Jake and his team to just figure out what it looks like
Yep.
to install this in your life. So, Jake, this has been great. Is there anything else we should be talking about before we wrap up?
Yeah, appreciate all the links and the shout out and everything and having me on the
Mhm.
channel. I'd like to leave people with this. If you haven't read the book, The Future is Faster Than You Think, I would encourage you to do so. And it talks about the culmination of all these progressive technologies that are going to happen in the very near future here. You got AI, blockchain, 3D printing, and many others that are
Mhm.
all going to be a huge deflationary um, movement in the very near future. And the iterative process for how fast technology progresses from here is going to be
Mhm.
exponentially faster than what we've seen over the past couple decades. So if you are not disrupting yourself, you will be disrupted. So I would
Mhm.
encourage people that are managing a business to always be, it's hard to get yourself out of the business, but if you
Yeah.
can spend time doing that and figure out how to disrupt yourself before somebody else does, that's where the money is.
That's fantastic. And Jake, I wanted to sort of go back to where we started. You talked about North Star and sort of guiding philosophy. I'm just curious, do you have a philosophy for life that you like to live by, how you sort of manage your personal life, your family, your business, that type of thing? I'm just generally curious about that.
Yeah, so we have multiple core values and principles. I'm patiently aggressive.
Hmm.
So I'm taking aggressive daily action, but being patient in the long-term outcomes of those. We loyalty is a big deal to me. So we take care
Hmm.
of people that take care of us. I'm
Yeah.
always trying to give back to the people that have been with me, over the long term. My objective over the long term, really, I'll give you a story. So my dad passed away 4 years ago, and he
Hmm.
was upset about the world, understandably so.
Hmm.
And he was telling me, you need to get off Facebook, and you need to call your congressman. And I'm like, Dad, like none of that matters. They don't care about your one account on Facebook. You're not lobbying for your congressman. He doesn't care about your vote. One voice isn't going to make a difference unless you do have the clout, you have the connections, you have the capital, you have a seat at the table to actually affect change and make a difference. So I want to be in a position where I'm at that table,
Hmm.
and we're well on our way at this point. And one of the main pieces for me over the next decade is to sit on the board of the top 10 most progressive companies in the world,
Hmm.
because that's really where you can affect change when you are on the
Yeah.
board of companies that direct how things are going to move through the economy. You look at these politicians; they're really subject to the corporations at the end of the day and
Hmm.
the people that are in the right positions. And you're going to be lobbying, for certain things. You see Microsoft, Amazon, Google, a lot of what they want for tax breaks and many other things
Hmm.
happen because they have the tax dollars that they're going to put toward that
Yeah.
politician or whatever's going. And look, I think the system's broken. I don't like
Hmm.
the system, but here's the deal. I have to play by the rules as they exist today so I can get a seat at the table to actually
Yeah.
change those rules. So uh,
Yeah. Amen. I
that's
love it. That's fantastic. I so appreciate that. And I agree with you 100%. I'm awfully frustrated by the way things are going, but it's like, well, let's just play by the rules. Let's go get involved and start changing things from the inside out. So I think that's beautiful. Jake, this has been a fantastic conversation. I do appreciate it. I think about the stakes that are out there, entrepreneurs, investors that have built wealth in crypto. There's a lot of risk. We talked about all of the opportunities where the wealth you've built, if I'm carrying it around with me, if it gets lost in a fire, that can all happen. And so, having structures in place that protect that wealth is critical. And then I also think about not just protecting it, but optimizing it, being able to really be efficient and accelerate the growth. Just ultimately, not so I can have more money, but we'll say live a great life. That's the whole point. I love that you're guiding people along that path. And that's what success looks like, right? You've got clarity, you've got confidence, you've got a competitive edge. The direction that your family's going and the long-term success is, we're more likely to get there when we've got a guide that's, got experience in that arena. So thank you for all of this. I appreciate all of the wisdom and insight and the just content you've created. And we'll make sure, again, we have show notes, links to all of that in the show notes. And if you want to learn more, digitalfamilyoffice.io is the place to go to connect with Jake and his team. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for tuning into today's episode of the Vital Wealth Strategies podcast. I hope you found real value in this conversation with Jake Claver and that you're walking away with new ideas to protect, grow, and simplify your wealth. If you did, please share this episode with another entrepreneur who could benefit from it. You never know how one idea might completely change someone's financial future. And while you're at it, take a second to leave a quick review wherever you listen. It really helps more business owners discover these strategies and start applying them. And don't forget, if you're ready to start building your own customized wealth and tax strategy, head over to vitalstrategies.com/tax. That's vitalstrategies.com/tax, where you can take the first step toward keeping more of what you earn and putting your money to work with intention. And remember, you're a vital entrepreneur. You're vital because you're the backbone of our economy, creating opportunities, driving growth, and making an impact. You're vital to your family, creating abundance in every aspect of life. And you're vital to me because you're committed to growing your wealth, leading with purpose, and creating something truly great. Thank you for being a part of this incredible community of vital entrepreneurs. I appreciate you. I look forward to having you back here next week on the Vital Wealth Strategies podcast, where we help entrepreneurs minimize their taxes, master wealth, and optimize their lives.